The information provided in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as personal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional or expert in the relevant field for personalised advice tailored to your specific situation.
If you've got 4 different buckets of water and we grab the water and we pour it into the one bucket, what do you think is going to happen? It'll eventually start to overflow. But then if you obviously spread that water amongst all the buckets, then everything's going to rise together. You're not going to have any overflow. You're not going to lose any of the water there. And I use that analogy all the time with my clients with their finances. That's why it's very, very important when we're talking about finance that we sit down and you obviously make sure everything is well spread and well diversified.
Hello, my name is Tamara and I am the practice manager at Ryker Capital, and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Guide, of course, sponsored by Ryker Capital. I'm on the sofa today with our senior advisor, Dean. What we're doing is we're going to really drill into a particular client case study and really talk about kind of what you did, what they came to you wanting, Dean, what you were able to achieve with the client, and a little bit of the how involved in that. Just want to start off this podcast again with recognizing that a lot of people don't know exactly what you do, what financial advisors do. And a lot of people have that misconception that they have to have pots of money, at least $200,000 or more for you to invest for them before you can add any value. So let's drill into this case study so people can really understand that that actually isn't the scenarios, or that's not the type of clients that you see and what work you do. So I'm going to paint the picture a little bit and you can dive in and tell me what you did with these clients. So we've got a young, relatively young couple. They've got a young family. So I think 2 or 3 children, you said, or maybe even more. I think at least 3 children. They are at a point in their careers where they're both making pretty good money. So we've got pretty high income. They do not have pots of money, though. They have a fairly significant mortgage. They were really keen, as I understand, on we're earning more money, we're paying more tax. Can we do something about the tax that we're paying? And I think they also really wanted to make sure that they were set up to potentially build a property portfolio, at least get into an investment property in the near future. So that's a scenario. I think that is quite a few clients in Australia. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approached it and what you unpacked and did for them, Dean?
Yeah, sure. So with this couple here, they initially came to me because one of the major factors, or one of the things that they really wanted to do, was obviously manage their taxes more effectively. Everyone, at the end of the day, we all pay our taxes and all that type of stuff, but they were looking at doing things and structuring their stuff a little bit more effectively so that they can do it in the most tax effective manner, and hence why they were looking at potentially buying and going down the avenue of an investment property. So they currently did have a lot of cash surplus. It wasn't massive amounts of money, but they did actually have a decent cash surplus.
So something to work with. How
Correct.
do you work with it the best?
Correct.
In the best way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And look, one of the analogies that I always say to my clients, when you're looking at doing anything, I think I use something called a bucket strategy. And what the bucket strategy is that, and I always ask this question to them just to get them thinking, where I say to them, look, if you've got 4 different buckets of water and we grab the water and we pour it into the one bucket, what do you think is going to happen? I'll ask you the question tomorrow. What do you think will happen?
Well, I mean, if all my water goes into one bucket, then I need to, first of all, it's really, really heavy and I've got everything in one basket. So I've just taken one approach.
Correct.
Is that it?
Correct. And it'll eventually start to overflow.
It'll overflow. I was going to say it'll burst or overflow.
It'll overflow. But then if you obviously spread that water amongst all the buckets, then everything's going to rise together. You're not going to have any overflow. You're not going to lose any of the water there, right? And I use that analogy all the time with my clients with their finances. So that's why it's very, very important when we're talking about finance that we sit down and you obviously make sure everything is well spread and well diversified. Now, with these clients here, they had a lot of cash surplus. Funny enough, they were putting a lot of their money in a savings account, not anything directly towards the mortgage, where people are under the conception that, well, look, if I put money in the bank, well, the bank's going to give me a bit of interest, right?
Okay.
And then I can invest that interest and use that to pay the mortgage. But what people forget to think is that, well, the bank's only giving me 4% and I got to pay tax on that. Whereas if I put it onto the mortgage, I'm paying over 6%.
Now we are, unfortunately, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And who knows, next month it could be 6.5%. We don't know with the way rates are going.
So they're effectively going backwards with that strategy.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're effectively going backwards with that strategy. So I was able to manage it in a way for them and structure it in a way that obviously putting things onto the offset account so they can really start saving that money. And then also just adding a bit of extra money in there. And that allowed them to really, really make some room with that mortgage. And especially in this day and age and the way things are and the property market is, their mortgage was around about $1.3 million.
So you're saying you had them put their savings in an offset account, but also extra repayments on the mortgage?
Correct.
So part of their surplus cash flow went to extra mortgage payments?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about, so tax deductibility. So if they did that, I think when you said the amount, and because they had some surplus, you actually, over time with those extra repayments, when you modeled it out, I was really amazed. I think that saved them over $300, I think it was closer to $350 worth of interest payments,
Correct.
which is dead money that they would have made. So that was very significant. How about the tax savings? Was it the salary sacrifice again? How did that go?
Yeah,
with that?
so we utilized, once again, we utilized a bit of a salary sacrifice strategy as well. Mm-hmm. So it is, once again, the main goal, and it is very, very important for them to obviously continue to pay down the debt, but then also in the background to help manage their taxes more effectively, we then utilize a salary sacrifice strategy. What we actually did as well is, given that they have a very young family, they had a considerable amount of money on debt, they wanted a protection strategy so that if anything did happen to either one of them, then their property's safe, their kids are safe, they're still going to have a roof over their head, there's still going to be food on the table for the family. So we structured the protection strategy. And when we did that protection strategy for them as well, we were able to do it in a tax effective manner as well. So we structured it with Inside Super, and then we made contributions to super to help subsidize part of the cost. So they had the best of both worlds, where they were getting the protection they wanted and they needed just to protect the family, but then also as well, they were able to get a little bit of money back from good old Anthony Albanese coming tax time. So,
well, that sounds good. So I'm going to read some of these numbers because they're actually astounding. It looks like to me, so just over, yes. So as I said, so interest savings that they didn't end up having to pay will not end up paying to the bank or the lending institution, $350,000 worth of savings there. When you did this super strategy with a salary sacrifice, that modeled out to a better outcome of about $200,000. So an increase of that amount over time as well. And it looked like the tax savings per annum was just under $1,500 a year if they continue going that way as well. And you also decreased their super fees. So you must have made some adjustments in your recommendations as far as the superannuation product and investment structures. That was actually $900 a year as well. So when you add all of that up,
it goes a long way.
It goes a long way. And so again, really drilling into the point of, if people have cash flow, they're earning good money. Really, when you're looking at working with them, you're adding value with these multiple tweaks of extra, repayments, potentially some salary sacrifice, having the right products and investments to pay fewer fees. That's your initial benefit. But then if you model out what that does for you in the future, it can be quite significant over the years as well.
It does. And then also with them as well, they one of their goals and objectives was to obviously look at buying and building an investment property portfolio a little bit more than what they have. So this type of strategy gives them and it sets them on the right path to be able to do that. As they continue to pay down the debt, they'll continue to build up some equity. And then I can obviously utilize that when they're coming to buy something else.
So increasing your equity build up quicker, so you can actually use that and you're leveraging into that investment property.
Correct.
So that gives you that goal as well. And then obviously that adds to that wealth creation and passive income creation as well.
Correct.
Thank you very much. That was crystal clear. So if you've got some cash flow, Maybe see Dean, look at making sure you are putting them in the right buckets. What can putting your money into different buckets actually achieve for you? Model it out and pick the one that actually is going to optimize your situation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.